Through my studying, I'd realized that if once you pass that 20-man outfit, you really kind of need to go to 100. And that takes a lot of capital to go from a 20-man outfit to a 100-man outfit.
Introducing Zach Davis and Josh Anderson with the SoundMoney Podcast.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of SoundMoney Podcast, SoundMoney, Sound Principles. My name's Josh Anderson. Alongside me today is Zach Davis. How are you, Zach?
I'm good, Josh. How's it going?
Man, it is awesome. We have been, we apologize, listeners. We have been all over the world since our last visit. And so because of that, we're a little behind on some things, and we wanted to just get back together today and share some thoughts. And so, by the way, Zach, has it been a good month for you?
It's actually been a really good month for me.
It's been
doing some things I love.
We will talk about those things another day. We did have a unique wild adventure that we'll tell the listeners about. We won't get into it today, but it was wild and crazy. And so, but we'll be sharing that here in one of the next few episodes. Just know this: when you got to go halfway around the world to what's called the Tinshin Mountains and live all the way up to 17,500 feet, then of course, you're going to have a couple adventures. So. We're actually really lucky today. We're super excited to have with us a special guest today. This individual is somebody who's been a wonderful friend to Zach and I over the last decade, but more importantly, is a extremely unique businessman. And so we want to welcome today Mr. Thomas Causey. Thomas, tell everybody hi for us.
How you doing? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, you are awesome. We're so glad to have you with us today. This is going to be a unique opportunity because we have a lot of listeners out there across the country who I think will really relate with you, Thomas, and your experience and your story, where you come from and what you're all about. And it's going to, for us, going to be kind of a unique day to be able to dive into what I consider to be a really awesome thing that you're doing in the world that most people just haven't even thought about. So first of all, Thomas, let us maybe start with, tell us a little bit about yourself. Your likes, your interests, maybe how you know us, and then we're going to jump into. We always like to get for all entrepreneurs kind of the genesis of their business journey, like where they start as an entrepreneur. But we'll get to that. Tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe how you know Zach and I.
Oh, geez. Well, if we go clear back, I actually lived next door to Zach's grandpa. I forget about that often, but he used to watch Zach's grandpa shoe horses and train horses out in the pasture, and it was super interesting. Then me and Zach went to high school together. In fact, I think Josh did too. Josh is a little bit older than us. And
hey, not that much.
He's way older than us.
Yeah, especially when he grows his beard out. He's way older. Yeah,
a little bit.
Way older. But then I went to high school with Josh's little brother, Jared, and got to be good buddies with Jared and did some fitness stuff together. And then we started hunting together, and through hunting and fishing and hanging out. These guys together have probably cost me more money in the fun department than anybody else in the world, as far as guns and hunting gear and motorcycles and snow bikes and snow machines and trips around the world, fishing. Just achieving awesome friends.
We actually take that as a great, Zach, would we take that as a badge of honor that he says we've cost him more money in the fun department than anyone else he knows?
I love to spend other people's money. Work hard, play hard, baby.
Yes. Those fun tokens just
fun tokens. For us in the business world, right? It's very rare that you get to have people in the business world that you can get along with in business and do business ventures with, that you want to go around the world with, and you want to go on these great adventures, or even if you have one free day to run and ride a motorcycle or a snow bike together or go chase an elk. And so Thomas, for us, is one of those guys. And maybe start out for us, Thomas. Tell us a little bit about the business, how you got involved in business, when you first became an entrepreneur, how that process started for you.
Oh, man. I think it was always just kind of in my blood. There's a bunch of different things that kind of string together, but I love hard work. I love stuff that's difficult to do. And as soon as I started working for somebody else, I just knew it was just kind of in my blood, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. My dad had his own company. And oddly enough, later on in my business career, I did my family genealogy, and I realized it was like 7 generations back. Every single one up the chain in my dad's side on the Causey side had been a business owner in construction. And so it wasn't that I went into business because of that. But once I learned that, I became extremely proud that I was part of that family lineage and be able to carry that side on as far as, all those ancestors being in construction, all of them in construction of some kind, either mostly general contractors of some kind, which is building houses or building commercial real estate. And so once I got started, I was in that era of high school where you were browbeat that you had to go to college or you were going to be worthless. If you didn't have an education, all you're going to be doing was flipping burgers. And so I started to go to college, and I was only there for maybe not even a semester. And I just could not wrap my head around how learning about caveman was going to help me provide as an individual for my family. And I think I had some short-term vision there. And so I'm like, you know what? I don't need this. I'm going to work. And I started, I had a whole bunch of different jobs. I started busting tires. I was a front-end mechanic. And then I went and worked and did some natural gas and phone lines. And then my first company I started was burying phone lines. And I had a business partner in that. And he wanted to buy me out. So I got out of that and ended up in electrical and went through my apprenticeship and really enjoyed electrical. It's a really unique avenue where I actually view it as though you're playing with one of God's elements, right? You got this power that can kill people, or it can actually really benefit their lives. And without electricity, man, we're all in real trouble. I don't know if any of you guys have done the research, but if you don't have electricity, you don't got no lights, no refrigeration, no food abilities.
Everything we know in the world as we know it doesn't exist without electricity.
Yeah, and it's a major power struggle in the world as far as, that power of whether it's coal fired or generation or solar and batteries or electrical or whatever. I just really fell in love with it. The industry is so vast that you can never run out of things to learn. And that was another thing that drew me to the actual electrical industry itself. Is you have guys that specialize in all kinds of stuff, as far as you can only work on elevators or only generator systems or lighting control, where you're working on turning lights on and off with a computer, or it's constantly evolving. I knew it was never going to go away. And I don't know, once I found it, I was just like, yeah, this is my home. It's something I could put my hands on and build. And it makes you feel real accomplished when you wire something and it works, but also it had the growth opportunity that I wouldn't just get bored and want to switch halfway through.
Well, knowing a couple things, Zach, about Thomas, and most entrepreneurs, most people do get bored, right? And when people get bored, what usually happens to them?
Usually they lose their business. They get lazy. Or they'll go start another business or another business or another business. Yeah, we've been bored a few times.
Yeah, it's not good. I'm glad you found an industry there. I brought it up for a reason, right? Entrepreneurs can't be bored. Like, it's in our DNA. We can't be bored. If we're bored, we're moving on to something else in a hurry. And so it's just not in us. So, Thomas, we've had lots of different entrepreneurs on our program and here on Sound Money podcast, but I think a lot of people, listeners, would be going, hey, so, how's Thomas different than my friend who's an electrician, right? Everybody knows an electrician. Everybody knows an electrical business. But I think from Zach and I's perspective, you do things quite unique in the space. Tell us what maybe you've done the last decade in that space that fascinates us, right? As entrepreneurs, it's really fascinating to us.
Well, I would say the one thing that I think it's the way you view it. A lot of electricians get into electrical because they don't like school. They don't like business. They like working with their hands. And so when you take the trade industry as a whole, you have a whole bunch of guys that didn't want to go to school, that didn't get a business degree, that went into work as an electrician. And when you excel as an electrician, you become the best at wiring a building, per se. And you get fast, you get efficient. And then you get these requests like, hey, you should go out on your own. You really should go do this for yourself. What they don't tell you is all those skills that you learned from being an electrician, none of those transfer over into being a good business owner. And so you have a whole bunch of tradesmen who are really good with their hands, and the problems they want to solve are with their hands, but the problems that they need to solve is all on the computer, on their people skills, integrity, how you treat people, having a dream and a vision big enough for all of your employees to fit inside that, so you can continue to give them opportunities to grow and have some legs inside your business. And that's really the differentiating factor. Is the skill set that you acquired to be a good electrician can take you 4, 5, 6 years, and you can be an extremely competent electrician. The skill set needed to become a good businessman take decades, and it's super frustrating. And most of the time, most of those tradesmen will make the transition, and they won't focus on the things that they need to go to the next level, as far as how to do an estimate, how to know exactly how much to bid it for, watching the market, knowing when you're like, everything we deal with is a commodity. So when fuel prices change, our wire prices change. When copper prices change, our wire prices change. So watching those and knowing, like, hey, when's this project going to land? If it's going to land between Memorial Day and Labor Day, I need to have more money in for my wire commodities, because price fluctuates with that, with the fuel prices. And that's the biggest, I think that's the biggest difference, is studying business and knowing business and loving business. If you don't love the business side, you'll revert back to trying to throw your tool bags on and go back out in the field, and it's detrimental to the business. So I think the biggest factor is you have to love business.
Zach, that's a universal principle found not just in the transition from a tradesman business to a real business, right? That's something that you found to be true most of your life.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think one of the biggest challenges that just even people in the professions, in most all businesses, the hardest thing is to get out of the way of the business. In other words, most people are tradesmen, right? And what I mean by that is even dentists. Look at dentists, look at lawyers, look at doctors. They all have this skill set, just like an electrician has a skill set, just like, a stucco guy has a skill set, and a cabinet maker has a skill set. And the problem is the dentist wants to have his hands in the mouth, right? And the doctor, he wants to be doing heart checkups and prescribing medicine. They want to work with the people. And so most people in their business have a really hard time getting out of the business and not working in the business, but working on the business. In fact, there's a really good book. I think I've mentioned it before on this podcast, but I'll mention it again anyway. One of the best books, in my opinion, to go read, to really learn where you are in your business and to try to get out of there, is called E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And he basically shows you how you're working in your business. Like you mentioned, Thomas, the temptation is, I got to put my tool bags on and I got to go run wire. Well, who's going to go out and bid the next job? Who's going to go out and keep the customer happy, that you just got done with, to get the next subdivision, if you're building tract homes or whatever. So it's in almost every single business out there. Even like, I know some very, very successful dentists who put their hands in people's mouths all day long. But I know some uber wealthy dentists who don't work on teeth anymore.
Nope.
All they do is start dental offices and hire other dentists to come in, because they have that expertise now. They hire dentists to come in, run those dental offices, and they get a little piece of all these dentist offices all over the country. So it's not working in your business, it's working on your business. Major challenge for entrepreneurs.
Yep.
So
I did read that book. That's a fantastic one. That's the Entrepreneurial Myth Revisited. It's E-Myth. Yep. It's a great one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back in time, Thomas, in like around maybe 2015 or 16, if I remember, right, it was right around there. You stopped by, we were going hunting one day, going up to chase some elk, and which is a passion that, the listeners know Zach and I have, and Thomas has been with us countless times doing that. And, but I can remember, I think it was 2016 probably. I remember you coming to us going elk hunting and telling us at elk camp that you were going to do something different, that you were going to change the whole, your whole model. You were going to go out on a limb and do something that maybe no one in our area had ever done, right? Southeast Idaho, Northern Utah, nobody was doing it. And that you were going to change the model a little bit. And Zach and I remember telling you, that's a great idea, right? Like, if you want to get where you want to go, you should do it. You should be part of that. And here we are 8 years later, going on our 9th year since then. And Zach and I, the reason I brought you on the podcast, we've watched, right? We've watched what you've done, and your idea has turned into great success. And I'd imagine that out of that, you've actually learned some valuable lessons. So what was it back then, eight and a half years ago, that you were going to go do?
Well, we were running into growth issues, and I was really struggling with um, wanting to continue to grow the business, and I kept running into manpower issues. And we were kind of geographically pinched. We were in the Victor, Idaho, Jackson Hole, Wyoming market, and anybody that we wanted to do work for, we were currently doing work for, and we wanted to grow more. And it's extremely difficult to grow in the construction industry because the manpower, it's really hard to acquire manpower. And so rather than trying to hire a whole bunch of guys, I thought, man, we should just really try to start merging up some companies together, because there's companies out there that are not run very well, and we have some skill set that we can help. And so I had a business partner that was had moved to Salt Lake City, and we had this opportunity. And I said, hey, go find the biggest electrical contractor you can find in Park City, and let's see if we can merge up with him, and we'll share resources. Because you have all these benchmarks in business as far as like, once you leave a one-man outfit, once you leave like a one-man outfit electrical company, you really need to have like 20, because there's these this moderation of scale where you're going to have a secretary anyways. You're going to have a payroll service. You're going to have to do costing. You're going to have an estimator. And if your estimator is working to round up enough work for one person, you might as well round up enough work for 20 people. And there's all these different benchmarks. And through my studying, I'd realized that if once you pass that 20-man outfit, you really kind of need to go to 100. And that takes a lot of capital to go from a 20-man outfit to a 100-man outfit. And so I had a business partner in Salt Lake that we went and found a guy that wanted to merge up, and we found another one. And I had reached out to a local friend first and was like, hey, we should push these companies together and make them a bigger company to service just Southeast Idaho. And another thing that is unique about the extreme high-end residential that we do, like in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, is, say that company in Jackson Hole needs 30 guys to maintain. Well, most of the time we need about 15 guys doing a really good job. And then there's times where we have these deadline crunches where we need 40 guys. So you have to keep a certain amount of league minimum guys just in case you need them, in order to provide for your clientele. So I was like, well, if we have multiple companies, we can share resources between each other. So if you're slow, we can put them to work at this job or this job. And it really, as a business owner, it makes you more comfortable in committing to bigger projects, because if push comes to shove, like say we have to work overtime on a project, I have much more resources to pull from to be able to complete that project, rather than just those 20 or 30 guys. And there's been quite a few times that we've shared resources back and forth. But the funny thing is I think the biggest change was our mentality as far as our confidence to be able to bid those projects. Construction's like the rest of life. It never goes as good as you hope, and it's never as bad as you think it is. And it always lands in that gray area as far as scheduling and moving guys around. And so we've shared resources in between companies quite a bit, not as much as I thought we would need to, but every company as a whole has ratcheted up because of focusing on our efficiencies. Because as an ownership group too, we don't think, how is this going to work for one guy or two guys? We think, how is this going to work for our 6 operating companies? How is this going to work as a whole? And it just makes you think that much bigger and more efficient. So long story short, we just started a bunch of merge and acquisitions. So once we got in the market, and once you kind of put that word out that you're looking to acquire businesses, they kind of find you. And there's all different types of businesses. There are guys that just want to get out of the trades, and they don't want, so it's going to happen a lot more too going forward. There's a lot of buzz around the baby boomers leaving in the industry. And a lot of those baby boomers were guys like me that wanted to make money with their hands. They were in the trades. And what's the beauty and the beast of the trades is it's not an easy company to exit, because if you have projects that are going 2 or 3 years at a time, say you want to close down a company, you need to be looking 2-3 years ahead to close that company down. And once your employees that you've grown to love know that time frame is coming, they're probably going to jump ship. And so it's very difficult to shut down a construction company. So there's a lot of opportunity to acquire companies and just be like, hey, this is what we're doing. We want to purchase you, and work out a deal. And it's been very successful. It was just like anything else. It was much more difficult than I anticipated up front. But it's really starting to pay dividends. It's really working out good now.
Zach, maybe by hearing that, what are some thoughts you have? I wrote down a couple, but I'll pick on you first.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I love about Thomas is he's always reading something, right? He's listening to podcasts, he's getting educated. You know, he said he didn't like school, but Thomas is a student. Like
I don't like sitting in front of the screen
yeah,
or sitting in,
like
I don't like being lectured to.
public education, right?
Yeah.
But Thomas is really a student, and so you know one of the things that I've always appreciated about him is he's always reading a book, trying to figure something else out, right, and coming up with a different idea. And you mentioned a dream and a vision that was big enough to incorporate everybody in there. Well, you got to have a pretty big dream and a vision to have the staying power when it was really tough in the beginning to go, we're going to fight through these issues, and we're really going to try to make all this happen. I've watched through my own personal experience. There's an individual that I know really, really well who had a company, and they would show up and they would work on buildings, and everything that it's my dad. I love my dad. He might hear this. He's gonna be mad at me, but it's okay. So
We love you,
and
Bart.
by the way, my dad's my hero. Like I look up to my dad. I've learned so much from my dad. But one of the things that always was kind of a bewilderment to me was we would show up, and my dad was a stucco contractor, right? And his dad was a stucco contractor. We'd show up and do a job, and there was a bricklayer laying brick, and there was a siding guy laying siding, and I'm going, well, we buy the material all at the same store. You buy the brick, the siding, and the stucco at the same store. Why don't we just lay the brick too, right? Why don't we just put the siding on too? And it was like this scale thing that you're talking about, and trying to find the manpower. And it was just bigger, I think, than what Dad really wanted to do or wrap his head around. But I mean, that opportunity is everywhere if you just kind of look. But you got to be willing to go do that, right? And so that was always something that was intriguing to me. And then when you told me you're going to do it, I'm like, yeah, this is the way. This is the way. Scale it.
Yep. And it's human nature too, especially so like you get comfortable, right? We're comfortable with electrical, and then we kind of like push into like solar and battery industry, and you have these thoughts of it's just about the time you're ready to break through, you have a lot of thoughts of, man, I should just pull back, and this is a lot more work than I wanted, because essentially as a business owner, the minute you decide to grow, you've decided to take on a lot more responsibility. So you actually ruin your own life for a little while. You make yourself a lot busier, and you don't realize all the problems you're going to have to fix until you're so far into it that you're like, okay, you know. And some people can't see past over that hill. You know, they got just a little bit more to go, and then they'll reap those rewards, and they'll pull back. And a lot of that is that vertical integration. It's like, okay, if we're doing electrical, we might as well do generators. We might as well do solar and batteries. We're branching into like permanent outdoor lighting, you know, on all these buildings. Because you're right, we're already there. You might as well do it. But with each one of those comes a new estimating type. It comes a new skill set of tradesmen that you're looking for. Because, like, for instance, we got into this permanent lighting. I didn't realize there's a lot of actual like siding hacks you need to know as far as cutting the tin and bending it to make it look real professional. You know, you just think, oh, dude, it's lights, no problem. But no, there's actually some siding. You know, you need tin snips and all these different tools, and you're like, oh my gosh, dude, seriously? You know, and how do we bid it? And so I've been in that situation like your dad, where you get so far down the road, you're like, never mind. I was doing okay. I was doing fine here. This is uncomfortable. I don't know. And when you don't know, you kind of feel like a fool. And being an entrepreneur, you're going to feel like a fool a lot of times. You can't be afraid to ask questions like, hey, what does this mean? Especially when we're getting into like solar and batteries. There were so many new acronyms that solar industry made up that I would go to a conference and they're talking about all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know what language they're talking. And I've been in electrical my whole life. And so I'd be like, what does that mean? You know, like, and they just changed the verbiage on stuff, I think, to make it specialized. But you got to be uncomfortable. You got to be okay with looking like an idiot every now and then, and, you know, and making some mistakes.
So real quick, what is the difference maker for you? Why do you go the extra mile? Like, why can you persevere through that part that's difficult and push? What is it that you've done to make it so you have that skill set and ability to do that mentally?
I I don't know, man. I think sometimes the harder the task, the more I'm attracted to it. And I think what it really boils down to is I got three incredible daughters. And at the end of the day, when I was younger, I would picture not being able to feed them or something and use that as a motivation to be like, under no circumstances are those girls. One of our company core values that we kind of wrap around is protect, provide, prosper, right? Uh, and we've kind of morphed that into protect, provide, prosper, prevail. As far as that, I take the stewardship of those girls so serious that I don't look at what it costs me. It's just like, hey, I'm going to make sure that those girls can eat, those girls got clothes, those girls got food. And because I think I take so much pride in that for those, then when we have like a company party or something like that, and I sit back, a lot of people, like sometimes those company parties are extremely overwhelming to me. I'm extremely proud that all those people are there. But then when I see all these individuals and I'm like, I'm helping contribute. We really look at it as a whole group, right? It's not like we have a boss and we have employees. We're all, I view us all as team members. We're all on the same team. We just have different responsibilities and different liabilities on the line, right? And so when I look around, I see all these little kids running around or playing, and I think about stuff that's hard to do, and I'm like, man, I don't want to do this. But then also, I don't want to not be able to provide for my girls, but I also have all my foremen and all my guys, and I'm like, hey, I'm helping provide for their families too, and I just push through. Like, it's just not an option. It's going to get finished. It's going to get done, and I don't know if that's a pride thing or what, but it's just like, and I also view like you're only here for a short amount of time, right? Your legacy is tied to your kids and the stories they're going to tell and the experiences they can have. I love more than anything to be able to be successful and take my girls on trips that they have these memories. That's what lasts. That's what sticks around. All this, everything else is just temporary. So
Zach and I have talked about this lots, but oftentimes we choose not to stop and think about all the families that rely on us, right? Because it can become, if you focus a little bit on that, it can become a little overwhelming when there's literally tens of thousands that live and exist on your decisions, right?
Yep.
I think the moment in time that it's really important to think about those is when there's really hard decisions to make that affect them, right?
Yep.
But the rest of the time, an entrepreneur just has to figure a way to continue to win in their space so that everybody can win, whether those are employees, vendors. I wrote down two takeaways as you were talking that I think are really valuable that hopefully our listeners can pull out as well. You said something about levels of scale, right? And for me, as an entrepreneur, I have found that probably the most important thing for me is levels of scale. Like taking what you just shared, how when you were just you, and you still gonna have to have a secretary and an estimator, and you're gonna have 40 or 50 employees, but to take those resources, right? Other people's time as a resource and magnifying it, right? By bringing in, I mean, you guys have done over a dozen mergers and acquisitions in HVAC and electrical and those industries. That to me, right? You're no longer a tradesman or an electrical business. When you actually focus on levels of scale, that's when you can really win in this world. Zach and I do this every day. I mean, we are asked all the time, how do you guys manage a dozen businesses around the world? Well, it's because of levels of scale. It's because there are people in each organization who can cross-train people in the other organization. There's software and technology that one organization is using that can be vital for another organization, and they'd never run across it or see it in their space. And being able to do that really takes you to a spot where you can make significant income differences in the same spaces you're in. And the other one that you didn't say this, but this is how I interpret it. So you can correct me, Thomas, if it's a lie. But I think it's really important when we're talking about tradesmen. I was a tradesman, right? We've spoken on this podcast before. I started out as a tradesman, like in the cabinet industry. So this is something I feel like I know. There's a power in a team versus an individual.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that, right? Because that's when you were speaking, right? Over and over. I know Zach and I believe this to the core, right? There's a power in a team and how a team, right? Like I know some of your other partners, right? I know them very well. We recreate with them as well, but I knew them before the mergers and I know them after, and they are not the same people.
Yep.
They are not the same business-minded people as they were as an individual, as in a team. Speak to that for a minute, and why you think it's been such a transformational thing for even your other partners.
Oh man. Well, they always say, what's the old saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right.
Yep.
And I think as soon as you hitch your wagon to like-minded individuals, as long as you're with people that have good core values, good individuals, they want to, like, I will work harder for somebody else than I will for myself. And I don't know why that is. I really learned that in, like, as silly as it sounds, I do that in business. I knew that in business as well. But I learned that in the gym. Like, I'll go to the gym, and if it's a workout for just me, I'll justify, like, I don't need to go super hard today. I did this or I did that. Or I'm not going to do that. But if it's like a team workout where it's like, hey, you got this amount of work, and you and one other individual are fighting against other people in the gym to see how fast you can do that, I will crush my soul to make sure that I'm pulling my weight and I'm not letting my teammate down. And I think as long as you have those type of individuals, it just makes it fun, right? It's like, I don't know what it is that you get around those type of people. You just want to be a better person yourself. And I think it takes the selfishness out of it. And once you get rid of that and you're really focused on other people, if I help you get what you want to get, at some point I'm going to get mine. I don't care when it shows up. As long as you're doing the right thing at the right time for the right people, you don't have to worry about yourself. It just works out. Your tribe is much more important than who you are. So if you can get those type of people in business, business is easy. You do what you say, what you're going to do. You do what you say. Like, gosh dang it. You do, you know what I'm trying to say. Say what you're going to do what you're going to say, when you're going to do it, under promise, over deliver.
Yeah.
You're good to go. It's easy.
I just know, I'm going to pick on Zach in a second, but I just know in my business life, when I gather together with one or two or three or four like-minded people on a task, and try and solve some of the world's real hard problems, right? Like, really try and solve some sophisticated business problems. Oftentimes, those three or four, two or three people never sleep, never recreate, never play until it's accomplished, right? Because there's an accountability to one another, right? And there is free-flowing thoughts, right? And there is, when you just have an individual, right? We get asked this all the time. Zach and I have partners in pretty much every business we do in the world, except for some minor things that we do in our own households. And I get asked all the time the question, is it really worth having a business partner? Is it really worth it? Right? Like, because they hear horror stories about business partners and their breakups. And I'm just a firm believer that if you get the right like-minded people and you said something really valuable with the same core values, they got to believe the same thing you believe when it comes to why you're doing the business, what your reasoning is behind it. It can't be just to make money. If it's just to make money, somebody will screw somebody eventually. But in my experience, in all of our greatest successes, it's been when a handful of like-minded people have said, we're going to accomplish that, or we're going to do that. And to me, it really is the greatest value. So those are some highlights I took out of some of your message. Zach, thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, no, I think it's 100% true. I think I can't remember if it was Dale Carnegie or Napoleon Hill talked about the mastermind principle. All right. If you've read some of their works, it's when two or more people get into a room, it's as if there's a third entity, right? When there's two people that join together with ideas, it's as if there's a third entity that comes. And it's happened so many times inside of like teamwork type events where you think you have a great idea, somebody else thinks they have a great idea. You take these two great ideas, put them together, and out of that comes an even better idea than what you could have done on your own. And, I always say the genius is in the team. It's not in the individual. Every individual has a skill set, right, that you can leverage. But when you combine all those and then put a vision and a mission to it, and everybody is driving for the mission at all costs, and like you're saying, there's no selfishness, there's no greed or no pride. And it's just like, we don't care about us. What we care about is make sure we get the mission and vision done. Then everybody wins, and everybody has success. And when you mentioned business partners, we've been doing business for a long time, Josh, and most people are like, well, yeah, but I want to do this. There's a lot of give and take in business, right? There's lots of times where I don't get what I want, right? And there's lots of times where Josh doesn't get what he wants.
Well,
Because-
hardly ever, but occasionally.
but it's usually because you both end up giving up something that you thought you wanted to go for something that's a greater good for the business. And and when other people have those skill sets you can lean on, like Josh is wicked smart with numbers and he has almost a photographic memory. So I'll be like, oh yeah, I can't remember what this. He's like, oh yeah, it was this on this day, this. I'm like, I hate you, right? Secretly, I hate him. But when you have people who have those kind of skill sets, and then you have your skill sets, put them together, it works, right? And
Yeah.
and I love, by the way, I always try to say, I don't have anybody that works for me. I have people that work with me,
Right.
and that mentality and attitude of a boss or an employer, a foreman or whatever, it really is a team when one person is not trying to elevate themselves over the other and then trying to use their power to make somebody do something, right? You find out really fast if you actually have a team when you ask a group of people to do something that sucks.
Right.
Because if you get any pushback and all of a sudden you have to be like, look, I'm the boss, this is what we're doing, you don't have a team.
No. And that immediately crushes culture. And your culture is so important because, especially like, I try to remind our guys, the world is tough, construction is tough. Let's not bite hard on each other. Like, hey, we're gonna make mistakes. Just shoot it straight. I don't care. Like if you blow up a lighting control panel, well, you just learned how to not do it anymore. So just tell me you screwed up. We'll fix it and we'll move forward. And it's not a big deal. You're going to pay for your education one way or another. And, you're paying it as a business owner in those individuals. You need them to be on your team. And it's funny is they really find out what matters when stuff goes wrong, when they need to take a week off of work because somebody's sick and you take care of them, or you find out they have some needs and you try to deliver those needs, like I hope my guys know, like my cell phone's there, they can call me anytime. And I think it's really unique that, I have a great tribe. I have a great family, great extended family. But if my girls need something, they know they can get a hold of my business partners like that. And that is badass. I don't care who you are. And because whatever you need in life, somebody else is going to deliver it for you. Probably, it comes down to even like the prepper mentality. I think of all these people that they try to have all this stuff so they can take care of their own household. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But you really ought to have a good relationship with your neighbor, because probably what you need, he's going to have, and probably what he needs, you're going to have. And so that tribe, that culture, your team, all those individuals in your circle, you just got to focus on being good to them, and they'll be good to you. And life's pretty awesome.
I'm going to, as we kind of wrap this up today, I want to just share with the listeners and some last thoughts. When you first started this new journey in around 8 years ago, one of the things that you were sharing with me up on the mountain, you were sharing with me how you were going to, inside of your electrical business, how you were going to build a culture. And you actually gave me a book. I have it on my shelf right here. You actually, you brought me a book right here. You might not even remember this.
Yep.
Clear back in like 2016, Tools of Titans and Tactics, Routines, and Habits of Billionaires. Like excellent book, right? And you had just read it, and you were. Oh,
there you go.
Hey,
I think. Did you even? He spent some money that day.
Yeah.
He
He gave us all one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that day that impressed me, right? And I thought it was going to be a great sociology experiment. You said to me that you were going to take all of these principles that other businesses like Apple and Google, and that Zach and I incorporate in all of our businesses, these philosophies around culture, around vision, around philosophies of why the company exists. And you were going to build a tribe inside of an electrical business. I promise you, if we pulled 100 electrical contractor businesses, we probably wouldn't find one. We might find one. We might not find any who actually would devote serious time and effort to those endeavors of helping build vision inside the business, culture. How many electrical businesses out there in the world would be able to rattle off their mission like Thomas just articulated, right? Those are things that we have to do in traditional large, what I would consider to be large businesses every day, right? And I love looking back now after 8 years and seeing how it has dramatically changed your business, dramatically changed you, your business partners that we know. And to me, it's made all the difference.
Yeah.
And if it can make all the difference in the trades business, it makes all the difference in every business, whether it's a sales organization or a restaurant, it doesn't matter. It makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Agree or disagree?
100% agree. Those values in that book. I mean, Tim Ferriss kind of started me down that routine, and then I ended up listening to a lot of podcasts from Andy Frisella, where it's called the MF CEO Project, which I kind of related to because I mean, he's as brash as they come and just slap you in the face, punch you in the mouth. And this was when he was completely dedicated to business. He did like 300 episodes that were very devoted to business before he got into politics. And I went down that, and then I read Jocko Willink's like Extreme Ownership, and that one really changed extremely changed my life as far as like, hey, anything that is inside this organization that is friction or I'm not happy with, it's my responsibility to fix it. And it's my partner's responsibility to fix it. And you are what you the old saying, you are what you eat, right? Well, that's not just food, that's content, that's social media platforms, that's who you allow to influence you, that's who you surround yourself with. And if you're around toxic people, or you're around a bunch of people with victim syndrome, or why is this happening to me? Whoa, the world, like, you got to change it, man. And the only way you can do that is who you let influence you. They say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Well, that doesn't have to be a physical person. That can be somebody, an author, or a podcast, or whatever it is. What you allow to influence you is who you become. And I just like to be happy. That kind of stuff makes me happy, man. I'd say, I would probably be just like every other electrician out there if it wasn't for the housing crash, the recession in 08, 09. You lose 70, 80% of your net worth. It really shakes who you are. And I thought, I can either pile it up right now and be like, well, I'm just a victim of the recession, and I just thought, it was Napoleon Hill talks about every setback comes with a seed of equal or greater opportunity. I'm like, I can either continue to operate business the way I have and not know where my numbers are, not know how to read a profit and loss statement, not know what a balance sheet means, not know how to read the scoreboard of my own business, or I can devote the next little bit of time to dedicate as much time as possible to learn those principles, and I'll come out on the other side and it'll be all worthwhile and it'll be better. And so once I made that decision and I heard him say like, this might be worse than the Great Depression, I'm like, man, if we make it through this and we get on the other side, I'll be like, yeah, we've been around since before the recession, and that's pretty unique in our industry. You got a huge washout of individuals. And it came strictly from lack of knowing how to operate cash flow, where their numbers were at, how to estimate, how to operate. And we ended up with so much work and so much growth on the backside of that, just because we learned so much and we took care of people even when we didn't have to. And that made all the difference right there. So good content, be a good person.
Awesome. Zach, you want to wrap us up today and send this off with the listeners?
Yeah, no, I love it. Causey, you're a champion. This, by the way, guys, this is when you have somebody in your life that you need to pay attention to and that you need to stick close to. How often look, we're not in the same industry, right? But we're all in business, and so often people are so afraid to share their trade secrets or to give somebody else something that will
secrets.
Because it's pride.
There's very little proprietary information out there. It's really just, if I help you make money, you'll help me make money, man. That's all there is to it.
That's exactly it. And there's so much in the world of business where people are like, oh, I got to look better than somebody else. So, there's 2 ways to have the tallest building in town. That's either build your sky rise or tear everybody else's down. Right. And in the business world, there's a lot of that where, people are they're out there it's dog eat dog world, and they want to look the best they can. So I'm not going to tell my other business friends or associates how to do it, because I don't want their net worth to be worth more than mine. But when you got somebody who's willing to like, hey, I read this great book, it really helped me in my business. Relationships rule the world. It's one thing that I've been trying to teach my kids, right? That you can build another business, you can get into a different industry, you can get a different education, you can do a lot of things. You burn those relationships, they're hard to get back, right? Relationships rule the world. So, I've loved it. This has been fun hearing your story and all the progression over the years of how you've changed. And we didn't do a lot in high school together. We ran in kind of separate groups, but we knew each other pretty well. And the one thing you always hope is that you're way different down the road and you've learned something. Well, I can tell you, you're a legend.
You as well, my friend.
You're a legend.
Well, we're extremely lucky to know you. It's our pleasure to like watch your business. It's fun to be friends, but it's funner to actually be entrepreneurs. We love going snow biking together. We sit in the truck. We drive about an hour and a half together, and we talk about business principles that are working and failing for each one of us. And for me, it's some of the greatest times, right? Is when we get to do that, and we get to sit around a campfire at elk camp, and we get to reminisce and talk about business. It's awesome. So we love having you in our life.
Business principles grow in your kids, dude. I love like seeing Riker and Talon, those guys like kicking butt too, man. You get to see the fruits of those labors, and it's so awesome because I feel like your kids are my kids as well. Yeah, they're some of my best friends.
They are. We appreciate that. It's we just want the listeners to know, right, that no matter what industry you're in, no matter what you're working on, there are people out there who are willing to help you, and there's principles being shared every day for free that you just go apply, go put in your life. And so, Thomas, thanks for joining us today at the Sound Money, Sound Principles podcast. For the listeners, we can't wait to see you next time on the podcast. So everybody have a great week. See you later.
All right, see you
Thanks,
guys.
Thomas.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Causey.